With that being said, it's been a long while since I uploaded last, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know when the next time I'll upload is, so... I'll get on it tomorrow.
A few things. Third anniversary is not covered much as it dropped during editing, but will appear occasionally. Also, ideally, watching the previous video is advised, but for some reason, some audio is mono. How did he miss that? For this mistake, I, Luca, have deemed this video as cringe. Unlike me, no Miku today. I'm close enough for Krypton apparently. Alright.
What fucking time is it? What time is it? Right. How long? 2 gigabytes. Oh damn, that's a lot of stuff. I can do this. Last time I'll talk about this game. Where was I? Right. Hatsune Miku Colorful Stage is a game that I found difficult to talk about. It has things I like, things I don't, and things I didn't expect. Nevertheless, I tried to talk about it a year ago, and I did imply a follow-up that would cover any miscellaneous things on the cutting room floor. However, yeah. But come on, we're back, and we got so much energy to spend after racking up reward after reward for partaking in events that I didn't partake in, technically, because I haven't touched this game in a while. Like, that sounds a little fraudulent. After weighing through that 2 gigabyte download and getting in, I realized something kinda strange. The game was exactly as I had left it, which felt so weird. Like, after that big download, I expected something a bit more substantial, but after that download, I spent the entire afternoon playing this rhythm game, so it doesn't really matter at that point. I got a good amount of people telling me to up my speed, as 6.5 is apparently too slow for all of you good Sekai players out there. So, okay then, I'll oblige. I said this was fine last time. It definitely is one of the rhythm games ever made. Fine. Yet, once I got past the download, I spent a whole day playing this damn game, and it felt really weird once I realized that. Nothing has changed here. It's still a tap and swipe affair like it always has been. So, this game has to be doing something right. Putting it here right now, I don't play other mobile rhythm games nearly as often as other rhythm games, which basically just means like this is the only mobile rhythm game I play. So when it comes to technicalities, this is more so just going to be opinionated and not really rooted in anything technical or objective. With that being said, it's an extremely playable rhythm game, easily accessible and quick to understand and efficient to work with when trying new songs. Patterns repeat themselves often to let someone understand what to do if they're fast enough, even if they don't know what the song is, which is, I think, a great strength to have. Some would call this, sometimes, lazy charting, but breaking habits of sticking with songs you already know to instead play songs that are new or unfamiliar to you goes much better than it could, since I won't be expecting to be thrown into the pits of hell of a chart I don't know. For the most part. It feels a lot easier to pick up here. Obviously, I'm no pro, I can't properly evaluate how these charts are on a technical level, but how I've learned to look at it is, like, say for example like Moose Dash, Taika, or Unbeatable, which, I need to make a video on that game. They're pretty simple. Like, they have extra like hold mechanics and all that, but it is mostly just 2 buttons, and they go pretty hard with unusual patterns of those 2 buttons and drumming. Not like there's anything wrong with that, but I start thinking that knowing the song is a little bit more necessary than knowing the chart, since mechanically, I don't really need to remember a lot. Not to say that games like these are easy, absolutely not. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, Project Diva, while it's by no means the Dark Souls of rhythm games or is super ridiculously complex, a lot of arcade games have that game beat, it still has more complexity because you have 4 buttons you have to manage with way more mechanics that need to be taken into account, like macros, holds, and slides. And they all need to be remembered at once. The game does a good job visually representing these, but in my experience, it gets to a point that even if I know the song before playing, there's a lot more trial and error because of how many things can be deployed at once. And the likelihood of being thrown a curveball in the chart is a lot higher. The chart, to me, holds priority over the song. This is how I've learned to look at things in the difficulty that I'm comfortable with in the rhythm games that I play, and Sekai sits in the middle ground between these two extremes. It is a simple game using clear notes with recognizable patterns where if you know the chart or not, song or not, you could very likely improvise your way to a pass. It varies up and combines the notes you already know into specific sets, and you'll learn its sets with time. I feel like I'm able to take on these higher difficulties even when I really can't. When moving on to Extreme, this slide and single note combo pissed me off so much to the point I considered not touching Extreme for this review. It wasn't impossible, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Soon though, I gave Tell Your World on Extreme a shot due to its lower difficulty and how it was recommended as a chart to get used to these kind of notes, and it clicked! It was pretty straightforward, and now, despite still occasionally tripping up on them if they're thrown to me at quick succession, I can pretty much throw myself at any Extreme song level 24 or below that I haven't done before, and I can get dangerously close to a full combo. Of course, this is only applicable to a point, since higher difficulties will introduce some new patterns and note forms, and also the virtual skill being on an individual level, so some might disagree with me here, but this is how I've learned to look at Sekai's gameplay. I hope I described that properly. What I'm trying to say is that it's a very well crafted rhythm game that can be brutally difficult at times, but is consistently very easy to get good at. There's a lot more put into this gameplay than I was willing to really admit. In all honesty, it's been a good bit since I really sat down and listened to Vocaloid properly, and Sekai still dominates in the amount that it offers. The songs that were on offer before I stopped playing were pretty fine if you ignored Japan's aheadness, especially after the 39 Days of Song Edition they did at the start. Now? Holy shit! This is just Japan's song list, but even compared to English, this is a lot of songs. Arguably an overwhelming amount of songs for any rhythm game. And this game is free. It's free! Granted, getting all these songs requires hours and hours and hours of reading stories, and maybe watching an ad or two. Though these aren't really cheap pickups. They're songs that get requested, commissioned, just added by surprise to drive exposure to new producers, which is something I'll get back to by the way. Or covered versions of popular songs like Bad Apple and Oda. And there are this many. These aren't part of an updated rotation either, so once it's in the game, it is likely never gonna leave. Unless you do something pretty deplorable, if you know, you know. But even with the existence of overseas versions, the only difference between EN server and Japan server and other servers is just time. Eventually, if you see a song that you like gets added to Japan, it'll come to English within a year, maybe a few months. No licensing bullshit here. That's great. One day, this game will be inaccessible, it will go offline, everything will be inaccessible. But I'm glad that songs aren't constantly coming and going. Once you buy one, you kinda own it for as long as the game exists. Which I think is pretty cool. And more often than not, if a song you like has you hooked, and you want to follow the creator, the game, more often than not, it will slide you a link to the original song on YouTube. Thank you! Thank you! The standard has been set. Every fucking game should do this. Please, just give it up. This is amazing. Just give it up. Alright, let's bring it back down to earth. I don't know how feasible it is to get every single song in the game using the only way to get the currency for songs, but it's never usually earned through playing the rhythm game. It's explicitly through playing the story, ensuring you're always interacting with the world in the game. And since you can do this, it's not that big of a deal to take a few minutes out of your day in order to get enough to buy a new song. If you don't care about the story, you're in the money. I know why it's made this way. If the rhythm game never gave you incentives to interact with the story at all, nobody would care about any of these characters, and the player base would be way too split between the people who only play the game for the rhythm game, and who want to play for the story and their anime goals. Which is why the game rewards you with basically anything that isn't more of the rhythm game when you play it. But the only thing that does is the story and events. Like, I don't like it, but I can't blame them for doing this. Doing the stories to get music cards eventually circles you back around to the rhythm game, but still, just you know? On the topic of characters and covers, the covers, honestly, I don't think I can really criticize this because it's an optional aspect to the rhythm game, and like, it's just flavor. You have to really, really like the characters and their individual covers in order to strive for these variant MP3s, because getting one voucher for one song, for one character, is a bit of a grind. But I know there's some out there who'll devote their lives to getting their favorite characters covered, so sure. Though this alone makes this aspect of the game not super worth it to me. Even if the covers are good, which is up to personal interpretation, some of them are and some of them are not. The effort and investment required to get them, I'd rather do something else. Is what I thought until I saw that Ado songs were added to the game. Hell yeah! Oh dear. It was clear to me that it wouldn't be the original. Like, it's just here because it's mega popular in Japan, and allowing non-Vocaloid songs into this roster of songs is basically opening the floodgates. But this is one of those cases where going from Ado's bold, booming voice box to the high-pitched, robotic, cutesy anime vocals hit me like a truck. It's just kind of weird. And also, Ado's kind of a high bar to clear. So to have more human vocals available to you in a case like this, thank the Lord. Just for cases like this. I would have much preferred the original vocals. You know, what are you gonna do? Wait. What else? PVs? Music videos? Nothing else much to say about them other than there's more of them. I did phrase their choice of what to decide which songs get animated videos is misguided, but they are giving 3D or 2D music videos to songs that never initially had them, which is a level of effort I respect. I would say, oh yeah, ranked mode. No fancy score shit, no bonuses, none of that. Just a pure test of skill on a random song extreme or higher. On a phone like this, I can't exactly move away from thumbs, which seems to be the next logical step to do beyond extreme, and the one time I did try and use fingers, it felt easier, yeah, but ow. Due to the requirements necessary to unlock it, ranked is a mode reserved for the more competitive side of the community. Every rhythm game has one, and I suck at it. You get put into a one-on-one for a random song on extreme, I think, or higher, against someone, no cards, no skills the cards give, and no grading system influenced by those cards. It is a test of pure skill and nothing else. I am pretty lucky that the songs I got so far were extreme songs and were songs that I knew, but a good humbling is always necessary. I lost every ranked match so far. And it's so much fun! Sekai is way too entrenched in its design and reward economy to make pivoting to this type of gameplay viable, and it honestly shouldn't. This is not a competitive game by any means, and I've come to terms with that. Mostly. But man, it feels good to have that kind of competitive fix for this game. And when it's over, you just wave goodbye to that opponent with a good game, man. It's a good community. Energy is something I'm glad only works as a bonus instead of a roadblock, albeit it gives you borderline no progression if you don't use it, but it satisfies the rhythm game only players out there. Like, if this game was gated by energy, I would very likely not even play it. Though even when I was not absent from the game, I still was given so many ways to replenish your energy with very generous quantities to do so. Seasonal events, other forms of progression, among other things, will give you items that let you go way above what you normally cap out at by just waiting. In my experience, I could effectively just have the multiplier on forever and seldom run out of energy. Like, ever. A really big help since I managed to max out all the base stories now. It levels up the character cards you get, and those do have a role to play in the rhythm game itself. Now, this is something I barely grazed on in my original video, but these characters actually have skills attached to them that take effect in the rhythm game, which are interesting. Some of these are pretty minimal, like health regeneration during play, and others just straight up commit fraud. Perfect on bad? Are you serious? I'd be pretty awestruck by the balls this game has to include something like that, but I mean, this game has already established that it doesn't go by traditional rhythm game rules, so I don't even know what I can say about that. Though, speaking of bads and perfects, the game does reward and acknowledge all perfects if you get them, and I've gotten very close to getting them without even really trying to. I thought I was just getting really lucky. And then I tried Sonorless. Not sure how popular this is, but if you're genuinely a person that cares not for any of the story that this game has and just wants to play this rhythm game in particular, Sonorless is an interesting alternative to doing just that I discovered. It's a rhythm game emulator of sorts that can pretty accurately copy the charts and gameplay of any mobile rhythm game out there, and the song list, due to that, is hypothetically infinite. Imagine an all-purpose like Project Heartbeat that clones everything instead of just Project Diva gameplay. Just join the right server of songs and you're good to go. 3 things though, it is an unofficial app because something like this is very much on the legally dubious side of things. And remember what I said about the safety window? Basically non-existent here. Going back to Sekai after playing a few games of this almost felt like cheating. And lastly, this is a community-led platform that tends to cater to people with skills ranging from somewhat experienced to completely fucking masochistic. It's worth a look at least. I've definitely outlined my nitpicks with Sekai in regards to the overall rhythm game experience, but none of my nitpicks are about the pure game itself. That part is a solid piece of rhythm game software. It's a pretty engaging one for what it is, without being so ridiculously trigger happy to artificially make it encourage alternative habits of just staying within your comfort zone. It's wonderfully accessible, but still has challenges if you want it. It's not the best thing I've ever played for rhythm games, and a lot of systems surrounding it don't impress me, but I don't have a problem recommending it. Unlike last time, I'm going to be going into spoiler territory for basically every group, no exceptions. I've read up to about here for the event stories for context. Not rating these base stories anymore, but instead, as I've done with multiple event stories now, kind of evaluating all of the groups in general. I won't be going into so deep into each group because if I did, we would be here literally all day, and there are people out there who can offer a vastly more analytical study of this game's story than I can. I'll definitely try my hand, but Sekai fans are very dedicated. What I've come to realize is that these base stories are just jumping off points for all of these groups. All of this, they're only to be played to understand why these characters are together and doing what they do. The real meat and potatoes is the event stories. Therefore, a lot of these base stories aren't exactly bright, but the comments were right. Oh my god, the event stories are so much better. We've already discussed Leonid, but I'd like to touch on some things as it was very long ago, and I guess some more final-ish thoughts. Some were pointing out how I was a bit too harsh on the latter end of the space story with Hanami, and, you know, for how middling I find the group generally, I commend that it tackles subject matter with this kind of nuance where there's no real antagonist or greater ambition the group want to achieve other than rekindling social connections. But Hanami's arc takes up half the story. I kind of got the gist of it by a certain point and I was waiting for it to be over. And it was a bit doubly frustrating how, as much as I like Hanami's presence, that screen time could have been used to develop someone who really needed development. That's probably why I didn't like this part of the story. Event-wise, okay, this is a step up in character work. This arc, I guess, takes all the themes and connections established in the base story and puts it to a proper test. We're going to do the Leonid baseline thing again. Shiho receives an offer from an up-and-coming indie band about to debut with a major label to become their bassist, a position she's worked towards for pretty much her entire life. Despite enjoying playing with Leonid, she knows that they're not as serious about music as she is, and has already proven to be the kind of person to sacrifice everything in favor of that goal. Will she follow her own goals to fulfill her dream, or stay with her friends that keep her happy? Now obviously, if you haven't read the story, spoiler, but she'll do the latter, obviously. But what made the story engaging is how it threatens the social links established in the base story. Shiho doesn't want to abandon Leonid by saying they're not as serious about music as she is. Is it a rude thing to say? Yeah. Is it true? Yeah. Do the rest of the group want her to stay in the band? Yeah. Do they feel guilty knowing that Shiho staying with Leonid would be holding her back from her desired career? Yes. It's a dilemma made all the more difficult because every viewpoint and concern is absolutely justified, and is a dilemma that a lot of people can relate to. Whichever decision you pick comes with a very personal sacrifice, no middle ground. In this story, Leonid finally clicked for me. The kind of themes it explores came across much better and more interesting in this context when the foundation of their friendship is tested and strained. It goes into pretty deep introspection for why they're still together, how much it means to them, what they'll do to maintain it, and it's much more believable than I expected it to be. Sure, Sekai stories are overall pretty sappy and the characters are pretty upfront and dramatic talking about their feelings, but I've just come to expect that from this game now, and Leonid makes that very clear, but in this story, it's something that feels so genuine. After this arc wrapped up, the Leonid motion graphic played again, and if this is meant to signify the real beginning of this group, they picked themselves up really well. MMJ was the one leaving me the most anticipated to where it would go next, but after I started continuing it and finished it, I was left a little underwhelmed since it solely focused on Haruka for 8 episodes. It's making up for lost time with her, and it's not like it's bad, I just got kinda bored. Like I did say previously, it was interesting how these characters reflect their experience within the idol industry, and Haruka's resistance to the idea of returning is interesting to observe. But man, it's slow. I wasn't expecting Oshinoko, god no, hell no, I didn't think he would go to like really dark places to explore the intricacies and consequences of being part of such a business, and let's not be unreasonable. The story does provide enough context to understand the problems they face within their jobs, so that's definitely something. Sekai also gets very little screen time, and I'm pretty sure it shows up only 3 times, all of which are pretty contrived times to do so. Event stories do improve things a lot. They take the expected route of going fully independent and having to figure out how to thrive in an industry through a completely foreign method to them, and it's quite interesting, having to look at previous issues stemming from the old ways in a new light. For example, Shizuku has a brand created image that's for the most part completely fabricated, yet it's always followed her in the industry. No matter what she's in, livestream or show, she has a dedicated following for traits she doesn't correctly represent because it's always managed by someone higher than her. She struggles with that feeling of responsibility having to uphold such an image. Meanwhile, Minori has absolutely nothing to her name and is backhanded by complete strangers due to the fact she has nothing to her name, but she is evidently the most genuine in the cast. I like dynamics like this, it's pretty cool. The quality of the key stories tends to vary, and once again, I'm not much a fan of idle stuff. Some of the stories are great stuff in terms of character work, especially for Irie, and others legitimately could have been an email. But throughout my playtime, there are very few that I'd say dragged or bored me, only some that I genuinely didn't think needed to be a key story. You Deserve Break Time really had a really cute ending though. And for all its ups and downs, MMJ's story is still pretty alright. VBS. Similarly, it started out pretty well. Ann and Kahane are a great pairing and are definitely going somewhere, and then all of a sudden, Toya becomes the focus point, and Ann and Kahane are basically done with for the time being. However, I did like this turn a little more than the previous group since Toya is an interesting character, being classically trained in music and only pairing up with Akito out of spite to his father. That is quite interesting, comparatively. Still, it's just Akito and Toya going through their thoughts until the credits roll. But it was pretty fine, all things considered. The event stories so far are I like them, but only proper ideas have stuck with me, like Ann's guardian insecurity with Kahane in the first story, Akito's very, very grand insecurity and stuff like that. But concrete events haven't exactly stayed with me in order to make this cast as memorable as it can be. Like seriously, my notes for VBS event stories are the shortest one in this tab. Alright, trying a bit harder. Holy shit, these two are, like, I thought the Anhane ship was just the community seeing 2 characters have platonic chemistry and think, make them kiss. But no, they are nowhere near the word subtle when it comes to this. Ann wants that girl. This is like completely irrelevant, but like I just thought it was really funny. The storyline with this Arata guy did inject some much needed pushback and stakes, and for that I am grateful. It does throw a wrench into the group's plans of surpassing the best music gig ever, which is something I'm a little mixed on. Surpassing Rad Weekend is the main group's goal, sure, but it feels like that's all there is to it, and very personally, I don't really care about it. This Weekend to Die For is so hyped up and it's the character's main motivation, but all they want to do is surpass it, and then what? Like, I like all these characters and they play off each other well and have great chemistry, but their individual passions that aren't surpassing this event aren't clearly defined yet, or compelling. VBS hasn't exactly been a strong presence in the amount of event stories that I've played, so there is a chance that that does get elaborated upon later, but that's what I've inferred so far. Still though, it's personally the most, if not the most unique groups in the game for its visual style and setting, which gets continuously expanded upon, and I like how diverse the cast is personality-wise. As a whole though, it didn't land consistently for me. Now, Wonderland Showtime. Base story-wise, I cannot fucking believe this. This was the best one. Easily the most consistently well-rounded starter story in terms of the characters, and devoting a similar amount of time to exploring each one. The story is pretty fun and whimsical, with a touch of emotion. The characters are great, if a bit annoying and brash at times. I know it's kind of a sin, but I think Emu's really annoying. I don't think I like her. Jesus! What? Fucking... But I can't say I didn't enjoy my time with the group. I actually had a lot of fun. Plot convenience be damned. I have little to say. This is a good one. Event stories are pretty fine too. A lot of grandiose entrances and whimsical stunts aside, Wonderland Showtime has a lot of heart to it. In the sense that it's not perfect a lot of the time, characters are completely ridiculous and certain ones grind onto the line of being almost insufferable. The story can seem pretty implausible at times, but every single time, Wonderland Showtime manages to pull through in the end for how brightly that heart shines. It's theatrical, where emotions are exaggeratedly expressed and it's difficult to dispute the raw humanity on display. These event stories all play out as if they were theatre performances with exaggerated characters and themes front and centre the entire time, and clear act structures and crescendos. It's a bit smart in that way, and if the characters were written to be characters in support of that vision, well done! I like that. Though that doesn't mean the characters are one note and serve only purpose in their stories, they are very defined and have a lot of motivations and clear personalities that shine greatly amongst each other. And it comes together in some of the absolute best Sekai has to offer in my opinion. If I had to level any criticism, it's just that things just happen. There's a ridiculous amount of plot armor for random things in this group. I get Rui is a genius, but I could count a lot of times where plot convenience is an endless supply. Other than that, one of the better ones. One of the best ones. Nah, Night Court, Ren 25. But certainly one of the most unique in the game just for its themes. It's a more introspective kind of story that tackles the emotions motif with a lot more stoicism and reflection. Depressing? Yeah, but it's not what I use to describe it. Mafuyu being the twisted character of opposing identities, completely obliterating any preconceived notion of her being the good girl from a fantastic performance by her voice actress, is definitely marking the line this group stays inside of. The potential to explore darker, complex emotions of loneliness, connections, determination, and vulnerability is the most compelling by far, and it ends on a solid, whatever happens, we'll deal with it. So as a send-off for a base story, that's pretty good. Now event stories, right, I kind of owe this. Everybody, this is an MASS. This is a Mizuki Akiyama safe space. I will not tolerate no shit thrown on this character. Is that understood?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm doing this as promised, but I don't want to reduce Mizuki's presence in this video as that character that may or may not be trans, despite it being a somewhat significant part of their character that can't be written off or ignored due to a lot of prodding in the flashbacks. As prolonged as their secret has been, it does elevate Mizuki's main emotional point of not getting too close to some of the best friends they've ever had, as per what I've read so far. This concept ties into the greater N25 cast, but Mizuki's is very compelling even without knowing what the secret is. They don't need to reveal it, they just need a hug, and it'll seemingly take a lot to get to that point. Yet despite this, they keep an excited and bright exterior that manages to push Enna's buttons in really funny ways, and I really like their dynamic. The type of person you can get along with pretty easily, like I wish they were real. See, I'd elaborate, but we have event stories to go through, and in summary, alright, I think that summarizes my thoughts pretty well. Hey! Jesus fucking Christ! What?
Have you seen the news?
Are you the person that's been throwing shit in my house?
Have you seen the news story?
Is it you?
In Japan.
Well, I'm not on to Japan.
This is like really important. Like
What do
everyone's
you mean?
freaking out about this. Jesus Christ, you
what-
can't be fucking
what-
early for anything.
What
can
the
you?
fuck?
You
What
piece
who
of
the
shit.
fuck
Come
are
on.
you?
Open
What
this
the
up
fuck?
right now. Look at this.
Right, so the statement that there are people who can dissect this game's story better than I could still does apply here, but I need to devote one section of this video to this event story because this fucking image is everywhere and I cannot avoid it. This event was damn brutal, and the writers knew to make sure that everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. In classic colourful palette fashion, there's still no outright definite confirmation of what Mizuki's gender identity even is, but from what I've read, in this story specifically, that honestly doesn't really matter because that's not really what the story's about. Okay, it's sort of what it's about. It uses the anxieties and frustrations of gender issues and self-identity as a base to go all in on what these issues lead to for someone in the position of Mizuki. Guilt of lying to people to save yourself from pain, confiding in your closest friends, receiving harassment for who you are, having any and all control taken away from you at your most vulnerable, and feeling like you have no one else to go to. Now, I know what some of you are typing right now. Mao, this is the most allegorical retelling of the issues trans people face in society today. Mizuki has to be trans. Personally, I won't deny that it's getting a little too specific for them to backpedal by this point. Now, that's going to start an argument in the comments, and once again, I want to say, all discussion, healthy discussion is good discussion, But look, alright? What fascinates me about this event is that reigniting the Mizuki gender debate within the community has inadvertently proved their character actions as justified and understandable. All Mizuki wanted to do was shop for cute clothes, wear cute clothes, and look damn cute while doing it. And now look where it's got them. Look where the community is right now, fighting over each other for the gender identity of a fucking JPEG. Their fears were justified and we are proving it. I'm a fucking hypocrite for even talking about this. Do you know what I'm saying? Look, if Colorful Palette knew that this was going to happen and did it this way to prove a point, fucking bravo. You could argue, I haven't read enough to know the proper context for all this, but fuck it, man. I just need Mizuki to face the camera already and say whatever it is they need to say just to end this shit already, man. I'm tired. It's like, it's midnight right now. Fuck me. Anyways, back to the months-old recorded stuff. Now, the actual events of N25 do tend to pack the biggest punches sometimes with its more downbeat tone and tougher subject matter, and the quality of these range from kinda okay to I think I'm about to cry. Some of the stuff in here is pretty damn tragic, but for how sappy Sekai becomes in all of its stories, N25 managed to strike an emotional core in the best way possible. Compared to other groups, there is a lot more fronting going on. Everyone in this cast behind their usernames and distinct selves are a confused, masked mess of emotions that hold each other together, sometimes without realizing it. They make music, sure, but the central message and central thing of their group is desperately wanting deep connections without having the emotional availability to properly form them. These lot will gladly put each other before themselves, and will do so much to get to know the others better in a more personal level, but actually confronting their own issues is a task they find immense trouble admitting to themselves. Like, see what I mean? I could write about this kind of stuff for a while. It's personally the most mature group in the game in terms of themes and character work, and approaches these topics with sensitivity without sanitizing the impact of these events the characters go through. This is what N25 excels at, and why I'm more lenient when it has its slower episodes. It digs into that venting, emotional, emotive side of Vocaloid where producers and viewers shared their repressed emotions with numbness, anger, sadness, loneliness, and showed everyone that they aren't the only ones that feel this way. These characters will strike a chord to a significant number of people who play this, mainly because despite their friendly exteriors, they're all realistically flawed in a lot of ways that people can relate to. Very, very great. Honestly, I don't think the base stories are... I don't want to say they're not good, but they don't do as much as they can to properly intrigue someone like me to continue with these characters. The only reason I did is because I was constantly told to. They have their responsibility to set up characters and scenarios for future events, but leave way too much on the cutting room floor to be able to stand on their own personally. Which is where the event stories come in, to pick up the slack that the base stories leave behind. I know that a lot of people assured me that this game picks up with the event stories, but just because you're right doesn't mean that these base stories get a pass. The event stories are so much better than the base stories, to the point in which I don't think there is a single base story better than the least interesting event story so far. They're shorter, but have a definite focus on what kind of story they want to tell instead of needing to set up for the foreseeable future. Well, they still do that, but there is a central objective in every event story, whether it's for having fun or wanting to do some character development. The only novelty the base stories have is seeing how the groups come together, and if you don't care about that, go right ahead into event stories. Sekai is written neither fully in the first or third person. The only way you read about and experience this world is through spoken dialogue and the occasional internal thoughts when a character is the only one in frame. This isn't inherently a problem, it seems to be intentional, and due to the large cast of characters, foregoing a central viewing point is actually beneficial sometimes just to see everyone interact. Because of this, Sekai has to do a lot more showing rather than directly telling, even if some scenes do feel like a long exposition dump. It speeds things up a lot in terms of pacing. Each event story is around 10 minutes long on average, faster if you're a quick reader. Unfortunately, I felt kinda bored as an observer rather than being in the perspective of someone currently in the scenarios. I don't feel as attached to these characters as I could, and the game prioritizes getting the pace moving instead of sitting and taking in thoughts. I'm there, not them. And yet, despite exactly what I just said, I'd say the character work in this game is pretty good, even the ones that I don't explicitly like. I wouldn't say there's a single character in this game with writing weak enough to fumble my enjoyment of them. I'm actually impressed at points with how good the characters can be, with believable flaws. One example that comes to mind is the Wonderland Showtime storyline. The last multiple event stories in this sort of chapter have been about putting on shows that'll get the troupe to win a competition for its amusement park. with the reward being the lead in an advertisement for that amusement park. To most of the members, this doesn't matter all that much due to wanting to be creative and known for it. But to Tsukasa, this is important for him. Something he'd yearned for multiple years, being able to show his acting craft of theatre acting to an entire nation until he has to throw it away. Not because of something completely out of his control, but a conscious group decision of getting every single amusement act in the park to put up one massive, show-stopping event. Otherwise, the soul of the park will be lost to corporatization. The downside of this being, you can't win a competition if everyone competing works together.
もしかして司くん、ショーコンテストの優勝のこと？
いや、それは気にするな。まあ、せっかくここまで頑張ってきたからな。優勝を逃すのが残念でないと言ったら嘘になるが、今はそれよりも大事なことがある。
He's obviously very excited, but you can visibly tell that the loss of his initial goal has hurt him a little. This small moment of vulnerability he has doesn't stay for long, but it says so much about his character that I appreciate. It does sound selfish that his ideal outcome was that he would win, but for the sake of the multiple people attending the park that they love, this is for the greater good, and that's commendable. Another is in Time to Restart, MMJ's very first event story, where they're trying to find an agency to sign up to. Due to idol showbiz bullshit, the 3 former idols and their +1 are rejected by any and all agencies they come into contact with, and are quickly running out of options as rumours spread about them. Many say they'll consider only one or a duet, but a group is not the appeal. As a last resort, Irie contacts her old agency privately, and goes alone to have this interaction.
社長、お忙しい中すみません。今日はお願いがあってきました。はい、一度アイドルを辞めてしまったけど、今のグループの子たちと話してぶつかって決意したんです。4人でもう一度アイドルをやりたい。ステージの上に立ちたいんです。だからお願いします。移籍させてもらってすぐに辞めたくせにこんなお願いをするのは調子が良すぎるって分かってます。でももう二度と文句は言いません。バラエティもタレント活動も事務所の方針ならどんな方向性でも受け入れます。だからモアモアジャンプの4人を所属させてほしいんです。
I really like this scene for a variety of reasons, but the main one is showcasing what Irie is like under pressure. In this instance, I'm not watching someone thinking straight or rationally, but someone incredibly desperate, throwing away any sense of pride and professionally begging. She says she'll do whatever they ask her to, as if to devalue her own autonomy. Is there a proper word for this? I don't really know. At this figure of authority to make her offer sound as appealing as possible, and after seeing her next event stories, it's a tougher watch than expected. She says all this without consulting the group about it first, which is a horrible idea! Irie is the seasoned, experienced idol veteran who knows her worth and doesn't let others boss her around, but is also more headstrong for her own good and regrets her impulsivity a lot. It's so rare seeing her in this kind of scenario, but her whole character is on full display here, and I really commend that. Last one, an N25 scene. In the main story, and in the event stories of her character, Kannade's background revolves around the stress she caused her father in his music production career, causing him to collapse from stress and remain hospitalized with deteriorating mental health. Heavy stuff, I know. Throughout the game, she casually does mention she goes to visit her father on occasion, which lets us know that it's not a forgotten part of her character, but in Carnation Recollection, us as players get to see what that actually looks like when she goes to see her father.
話してみようと思います。おはよう。あ、今はこんにちはか。
ああ、こんにちは。
調子はどう？
すみません。どなたでしょうか。あ、覚えていなくて申し訳ない。どうも今、仕事のストレスで記憶が混乱しているらしくて。
そっか。
せっかく来てもらったのに 本当に申し訳ない。どうも今は家族のことぐらいしか覚えていないみたいで。
家族のこと？
ええ。実は今度子供が生まれるんです。この間安定期に入って妻のお腹がどんどん大きくなっていって、だからもっと僕がサポートしたいんだけど、こんなことになってしまって。本当にダメだな僕は。
そんなことないよ。宵崎さんは家族のことを大事に考えてる優しい人だよ。
ありがとう。そういえば君の名前は？
かなで。
かなで？偶然ですね。僕も子供に同じ名前をつけようと思っていたんです。僕も妻も音楽が好きなので、少しでも音楽に触れてくれたらと思って。って僕のことばかり話してしまいましたね。
うん、私のことは気にしないで。早く回復できるといいね。家族のためにも。
そうですね。どうもありがとう。
I don't think the game offered a more sudden gut punch before this moment. I wasn't expecting it, but that doesn't mean it came out of nowhere. We already knew this is what Kanade goes through. Constant reminder of guilt that she feels entirely responsible for, but can't do anything about, and it will keep getting worse. This does a lot to legitimize Kanade's desire to help Mafuyu out of her depressive state, instead of just constantly saying, "I'll save you" all the time. Like, yeah, I know this has been a clear plot point, but actually seeing it? Wow. And she doesn't break down in tears either for it. When Mizuki sees her later in the street, she's just sulking. No outbursts, just a lot of numb. Moments like these happen pretty often in the game's story, and it's where the game goes from the story in a gacha game levels of investment to, okay, this is actually pretty compelling. It's a character-driven story at its core, and it has to balance a lot at once in order to keep them consistent, but I did come away pretty humbled at initially doubting the power it has. These are good, well-written characters, and if I wrote about every single one and their dynamics, interactions, and relationships, we'd be here all day. However, there is one character in the game which just kinda sort of grinds it to a halt for me with its story. And again, it's Ichika. Those Ichika fans assured me she gets better in the event stories, and look, I get it, she is slightly better now, at times, pretty good. Unfortunately, I have to double down. While previously I thought she acted more as an observer, now she takes a more active role in pushing forward her group and their story. She has a good amount of development as a character, but my main issue with her is personality. She's pretty calm, modest, somewhat stoic, and kind-natured. It's not a problem, but she's just a bit of a void. Like, you know who else is calm, modest, and kind-natured? Hanami. You know who else? Kanade. And these two characters are infinitely more interesting to watch and interact with than Ichika is. Hanami could do literally anything, and I'd be cheering like, yes! That's my girl right there. That's her! Like, Ichika just doesn't have that, from my experience. She likes Miku, and doesn't exactly like noisy places, and that's pretty much it for personality traits. I get that she is the self-insert character, but compared to everything around her, she just stands out. I don't feel like it, but I have to. I'm sorry, Ichika fans. However, that's about it for writing. One character exposes the risk of the dialogue-only visual novel? That's not the worst. While the choice of storytelling format actually manages to be better than expected, the biggest issue I have with this game's story is presentation. When a non-important character shows up in the story, it's a complete coin toss whether they'll have a visual image and or a voice. The story is written to be told in a way that makes things dominantly efficient, so when a person outside the main cast is in the scene, they often don't get a visual, or they get one later on in the stories, which would be fine if we had a sort of voice attached to them, but we often don't. So it leads to some awkward interactions when, let's say for example, Hanami talks to her classmates who can say hurtful things to her in the main story, when we hear nothing.
それじゃ。 PRS だよ。前に誰かから聞いたの。
These are throwaway characters, sure. But when this happens, I reduce these main characters to the voice actors in the booth recording lines, talking to what's basically nothing. At the very least, it makes minor characters who have a model and a voice a bit more significant, since we know they'll make an appearance down the road. What I find really funny though, is the fact that this being a music game, okay, a music game, with a story centered around music and friendships, but music as well. The cast sometimes gets to sing in the main story, and they already have in-game cover, so let's hear it!
やっぱりこの子。リズムはまだ甘いし、体の芯から乗り切れてない。でもこの声、柔らかいのに響いたら一緒に歌ってみたいって。
That's embarrassing. This is so damn awkward, and it really doesn't help when stuff like this happens and the characters say, "Wow, you've improved so much!" Like, I know that expecting them to sing all of a sudden is unrealistic some of the time, but the backing track is being played right there, like with no vocals. You have covers recorded already, man. Visual presentation is also, I guess, slightly on the bland side for me. Obviously, the writing and the characters are top priority, but a lot of scenes seem to blend together because of how a lot of the backgrounds were reused and rarely altered. And also just kind of depicts, like, a basic school, Japanese city center. There isn't really much variety, personally. Like, putting aside, like, lighting and mood makes a lot of difference, guys, trust me. Obviously, it's made this way so that there's an obvious contrast to the Sekais, which are a lot more colourful and experimentative in their themes and vibe. That's all good, but VBS and Wonderland Showtime show that you can portray the real world while making it distinct. VBS especially focuses on exploring their own little pocket of Tokyo where customs and expectations are different to everywhere else. A place where open street performances by all walks of life are frequent, graffiti is prevalent, live houses are everywhere, and everyone seems to know each other, with certain figures having established history, and the background used for these are effective in that way. Also, the actual character works when serving as like the end of stories and event stories. They're quite pretty, they're drawn well, I won't take that away from it. There is a lot of art in this game and it's quite good. But what the characters wear in them will not be reflected in the actual animated segments of the story, so there is a slight discrepancy between this and this. This is very nitpicky, I know, but I just thought it was really funny. Animations are also on the, I'd say, good enough side. Like, this is a very weird comparison. So when Nekopara came out, sure, like using live 2D blew my mind out of the back of my skull. They actually move! But on the age of Nekopara being like 10 years old and generally VTubers being fucking everywhere nowadays, this is a little on the simple side for me. It's all just fine, and the only time the game shows that it can be more expressive, my demons come back to haunt me. Not like this is at all important in the grand scheme of things, but from my POV, there's kind of little sauce. Everyone looks kind of stiff, it's kind of sterile. I kind of want to see a bit more effects work, filters, and etc. And anything will help. Now, what's funny about this is that this is later on part, but I went to the event menu and it played a slight starting episode of a story for VBS. That starting story for a separate mode had more effects work than most event stories that I've read up to so far. I mean, using live 2D at all is a bit of a plus, I guess, but I don't know, man. I've seen a bit better. Though I say good enough because while I think the game could definitely afford to be more expressive, I was invested in the characters and story enough, so it's not really a negative. With all that said, this game sacrifices a lot to keep this story moving and focus on telling character-driven stories above all else. So the last straw here is voice acting. I'd say the performance of the cast do a pretty good job across the board. These are characters who will have events, episodes, and entire celebrations dedicated to them, so having a strong voice cast to give a unique sound and personality to each of them is pretty essential. It honestly sounds like a lot of work and pressure, and that's without factoring in the whole business of being a trained singer. Each character sounds unique and are all quite distinct in their mannerisms, personality, and general vibe. Having played the game, I can easily determine who is who just by hearing some voice lines, even in a language I don't understand. Though acknowledging that, I am aware that the unfamiliarity of language biases in effect here. I don't speak Japanese. I'm learning so I can go next year, but I don't speak it. So I can't really say that they're good or bad. But I don't think a bad performance is ever turned in by anyone. Even if I find Emu really annoying and too obnoxious, that's exactly what was intended, and it's exactly what was delivered. My takeaway for this part of the game, like, you know, the whole story was, do I care? The game has a lot of these tender, emotional moments that pack a punch when they come, and it has some great character work, with some Vocaloids doing something here every now and again. Yeah, remember, like, notice how I haven't really talked about the Vocaloids that much? I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The Vocaloids implemented here, they're definitely sensical, and at times, it's pretty smart. They still take a backseat to everything that happens, which diminishes their presence. All they have for a reason to exist is to guide these characters to make them feel better about their everyday problems, with no real characters of their own that only have very light stereotypes. In other words, this is official, Krypton Future Media approved fanfiction. You get a Miku in your phone, and she is your therapist. That is pretty much how I'd summarize the entire game. Like, badly, but it's true. The Japanese title of this game is more literal than the localized one. This isn't a Hatsune Miku game. This is another game with Miku featured. And I don't think the game does enough, or likely can do enough, to improve it in the story. Even in the event stories, like, nah man. Like, I don't mind how they're portrayed. I think this is actually a good thing. They vary between appearances in each Sekai, but it's just, there isn't much to them a lot of the time. Some of this could be due to a mental barrier depending on how you were introduced to the game. I, for example, already knew the Vocaloids before this game, so when I had to spend time with the new characters, a lot of my thoughts were, I don't give a shit who these people are. Now take somebody who is casually introduced to this game with no prior knowledge of Vocaloid as a whole. They spend so much time with the main cast that get basically all the attention in this world, story, gacha, etc. I would not be surprised if they turn to the Vocaloids and say, I don't give a shit who these people are. And that sucks. But, you know, likely not the majority of people. I just don't think the Vocaloids here get enough. But what of the characters that this game actually focuses on? What colourful palette has invested years and years of writing to make this into the phenomenon it is today? Overall, what the hell do I think about these characters and this story overall? This is the longest part of the video, after all. The best way I can phrase it is that I can see why so many people like these characters so much. It is a very wide cast where you'll find at least someone you can relate to and like. And I do too. But I'm not near the point where I'll genuinely consider buying merchandise from anyone in this cast or freaking out if I get a card of them. The story doesn't do enough for me to play this game for days and weeks on end, but that, by no means, indicates I think it is bad. There are some serious highs here that I respect, and if this is your first time seeing Sekai, which I'll be surprised if it is, but if this is your first time and you like what you see, don't let my fucking stupid opinions turn you off from this game. Give it a try. But when it comes to anything I like anything I legitimately like and love, Sekai is not there yet, and it likely never will be. It's through no fault of its own. A lot of the in-jokes and passion behind this cast is enough to support that. But this whole thing, this premise, I don't think it's for me. It's probably just me, but I'd be willing to give out any cards I have if that were possible. Even some of the supposed rare ones if I had any. Because I don't care enough to check how rare they are. Oh. Look, what can I say about this game that I haven't said before in this department? I want to talk about this game's various systems without repeating myself. I'm still not someone who engages in gacha games, so whether I'm even qualified to talk about this is up for debate. Drop rates, card skills, talent points, tiering, these things don't concern me. What concerns me is progression systems, roadblocks, filler, and anything that weighs down the game's best part for the sake of encouraging spending money. And just like that, I think I've probably shut down the interest of a lot of people watching this video. I have never spent any money on this game, and I never will. Even like for research purposes for this video, I've never spent money on this game. These are not my type of games to spend money on. Obviously, still discussing that your set of cards is what determines your score, and it's only up to a certain point where every card on your deck is elite, when it feels like a proper rhythm game. That it's at that point. A free sinkhole that only accepts your interaction and money. However, me saying that isn't some brave statement. All mobile rhythm games are like this, at least the ones with a gacha. By the time this video is over, you're probably going to be sick of me saying that. So it feels a bit useless to complain about it right now. I still don't like it. I can't exactly say anything has changed in this department since I've been away. It's still the game's core progression system, but I want to take a slightly deeper look into it. Now, the question, how much can I play without spending money? I have an answer. Colorful Stage is a hybrid of two very different game genres, rhythm games and visual novels, in which the end reward for completing the tasks in one of those genres is the opportunity to play the other. At the very least, this game offers a wide selection of original, licensed and covered Vocaloid songs in a competently made rhythm game accessible for all those who have hands. If you just want to keep yourself busy with the tunes from the Land of the Rising Sun, that's not really a good way to describe Vocaloid, but it's an easy recommendation. If you used to like Vocaloid and want to get back into it, it's even easier to recommend. If you want to follow with the latest and greatest in the Vocaloid scene, I'd really hope you're actually playing this game right now. On that front, the game only requires your time, and doesn't gate you out with energy. It can be played as a traditional, no-nonsense rhythm game, and it will satisfy you if you're there for that, and only that. If ego is a problem for you, or you think the scoring system is straight up wrong and want to increase it, or you intend to get high in the event rankings, engaging in this gacha is pretty much necessary. Having a base 4-star team has just barely put me over the edge of B rank, which still hurts. But then you need to upgrade all your characters, and that's an entirely different other system. Very big system actually. But, even though you need to spend time in the gacha, don't need to spend money. Look at the team I have just by playing the game and grinding out temples. Obviously this took years of work of playing and pulling, but that came pretty easily because remember, I don't care. But what if that's not an issue for you? What about something more fundamental than the letter determining how good you are? What if you've exhausted the current library of songs and you just want more songs? Use your music cards to buy more songs in the shop, which at the time of writing, very, very plentiful. And if you don't have any, start reading. Here, you could just do what people with priorities do. Skip everything and get your music cards at the end. And others will likely end up reading the stories fully at their own pace. Both are very valid ways to engage with the game. Wherever your priorities are, they will be met, either with music cards or story investment. However, if you prioritize the story or you're just curious, this is where it mostly goes down. You like the character designs, you like the characters themselves, enjoy the story, have an autistic need to have everything your favorite character has in the game due to hyperfixation, chances are then you'll be going to this gacha menu a lot. However, like the rhythm game, the story has no cap to it that really stops you from engaging in the content it delivers. The only cap it has is if you read literally everything, and there is a lot to read. And if you read the game's story, as I outlined before, there is a chance you'll appreciate what's on offer here, and want to engage with it more, leading to the gacha, which is definitely the game's main goal. Both reward economies have miscellaneous systems that can lead to gacha. For example, just wanting characters, or you want to get higher scores and stuff like that. That kind of miscellaneous stuff. But I never felt like I was required to engage with it at any point. Sure, the scores make me miffed, but if I don't feel like it's necessary in order to enjoy the charts, the song list, or the general rhythm gameplay, then I'll be fine. The letter grade doesn't even affect your reviewed performance like perfects. If you get a perfect, you got yourself a perfect. Similarly, if someone enjoys the story, they can read all of the important events as much as they want, whenever they want, but they won't get access to the specialty things. For example, side stories that can only be accessed by getting very specific cards. 80% of the things that are free in this game are all the important bases and necessities to have a good time, and the 20% tends to be for those who want to spice up their experience with the game with some extra faff that isn't exactly game changing for the most part, only if you care about the side stuff. It operates on the basis of, you don't need to gacha to get the value out of me, but you want to, right? I.e., the only reason you'd spend is if you're either extremely irresponsible with money, or you think Colorful Palette deserve it. Personally, I think it's pretty ballsy that Colorful Palette hinges their entire revenue model on whether you like the characters or not. Sure, there's always going to be those who want all the characters and all the sets, but I just find it interesting that they've made that type of player the primary target for monetization. And like, I know every gacha does that. It's called whales, that's what you want. But you also want the people slightly down below to also spend money. And again, I've spent nothing. Everyone can play around with the rhythm game or the story, and Colorful Palette will not ask much of anything. And if Sekai has an abundance of anything, it's content. The value that the gacha offers is mostly up to personal preference whether it's of any use to you or not. So do with that assessment what you will. See, I've been humbled a little bit. In my way too optimistic worldview, Diva would get more budget, this gacha would never exist, these characters would never exist, and a product would be released where the rhythm game is as core to progression and gameplay engagement as your standard fare rhythm game, only in a free, accessible environment. Few problems with this though, it doesn't generate any money, so 2. Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Connect is basically this. Only available in Japan, likely due to licensing, even though it's fully translated into English. It's a mobile-only version of Taiko that, can I just say, it works like a dream on the phone. If this was the only way I could play Taiko's rhythm game till the end of time, I mean, the arcade version is pretty fun. This is very, very intuitive, and it feels really tight, very responsive. The song list is pretty great too, since it's a very modern and up-to-date iteration of the game that gets constantly updated. And that's where the positives kind of end, because this game is, beset, crowded, full, jammed of, ravaged, there we go. Ravaged with ads. Complete a song, that's an ad. Want to play a specific song? You will sit down and watch this fucking misplay advert and you will be happy. Like, these ads are also really fucking intrusive as well. You can't pull down your notification bar to like check notifications while the fucking ad runs. No, it will stop. So you need to fucking have that on in the background and just do something else while it stops. I don't like it. Now, of course, you can, it's a free game, so you can pay to remove the ads. You know, that's a very common thing in mobile games of old. You need to pay to get rid of the ads and you get an ad-free experience. That's fair. You can pay to remove them. For a month maximum. This is what I was afraid Sekai would be before playing it. And if the extra fat and complexities of a gacha system, a story, multiple currencies, and a lot of bloated systems is what it takes for it to be a relatively ad-free, expansive rhythm game, I'll take it, man. Like, for all my complaints of roadblocks and stuff, like, there's a lot more effort in this one. At least the game didn't stop you to watch an ad every song you complete. And yeah, ads now exist in the game, and they're as smart and interactive as Taiko's, but you actually get stuff from it for free, like permanently, like a song. And Colorful Palette understands how intrusive the concept of them is, so they limit their presence as much as possible, and they are always user engaged. So like, if you want something, just play the ad and you'll get it. Though, Deidre showed me this earlier. They had a recent announcement post in the announcements tab of the game, and they were just begging, please play the ads, please. Good, here's where you can find them, please play the ads. The amount of in-game currencies is a problem, and that will likely never ever get fixed. Colorful Palette, I know that getting users to engage in other parts of the game is a good move for the overall enjoyment and value the game has to offer, and I encourage it, but if it requires a specific other doodad that I've never heard of before, and I'm not told specifically how to get it outside of doing something else entirely, I'm just gonna forget some of this side content even exists. I'll move on and I just won't care. Like, the only abundant currency type that I think is somewhat acceptable is cover cards. Like, it's very much a novelty item that exists. Like, it's not really super sought after, it's just a purely preferential thing. It gives some of the songs a special association, which, like, while a point of contention amongst the great community about how these songs are retroactively perceived, it's something, man, alright? It's something. See, now in the script I put Gacha conclusion goes here because I didn't actually write a conclusion to it, but to me it's just kind of a superfluous aspect of the game. Like, if I'm playing rhythm games, I don't look at this. I've racked up like a good amount of 10 pool type money. So it's okay. I don't care about it. Like, I'd say that the gacha aspect of the game isn't really all that neat, and I don't think the characters are interesting enough to justify engaging in it whilst Vocaloids exist. But there are a ridiculous amount of people out there who straight up wouldn't have a personality without these characters. I'm only half joking with that statement because the shit I've seen on the interwebs of this fanbase tells me that the ones who invest in the characters tenfold are, let's say, quite young. Please just give me my 4-star hero, please! I will send an assassin to get you, I swear to God! Horrible app. Give me my flippin' Nene Kusanagi 4-star or I will send termites to your home. If I don't get Valentine's Nene or Cyber Nene, I will do some bad things to you. Give me my Karaka 4-star now! I am coming for you, Sega. Also, I hate Akito because I hate gingers. This game made me gay. Don't play if you hate the gays. So let me get her if you don't want to have to use a food tube for the rest of your life. Threat. Thank you, goodbye. Bye.
This is Sega customer support team. Thank you so much for your feedback. We are sorry for the inconvenience caused. Please be assured that we'll forward this matter to the police.
Miku ate my dog. I got no snowman for you. I wanted to flip it Mizuki star, but I got the gay ginger. You don't understand my hedge to the ginger community. And the flipping give me. I spent all in crystals for that stupid Kaito 4-star card, and I don't get it. I swear Todd Sega. I'm going to fall insane if I don't get him. Silly little. This game made my dog die.
My sister is becoming narrator because of this game. This game makes me experience my inner alpha.
I look at men and I feel weird. I don't like that. Give me this Gacha 4-star card for the new year. I've been saving up for it for so long. I look at Ben. But what the hell? I can't get him in Nori 4-star and I've been playing since 2022! Oh. I hate how Rui makes me have gay thoughts. I am a raging homosexual for Rui Kamishiro, and we are getting married soon.
Why did you include this? Good for them though.
Rui is mid, that's all, but I still like this game. Hey, in some parts of the internet, that's fighting words. Worst game ever, not enough Rui, 5 stars. Tsukasa Tema will change your life. Once the wonder holification has begun, there is no going back. I love Imu Otori.
Oh, prefiero da puta. I prefiero da puta.
10 out of 10 has Akiyama Mizuki. True!
We are no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I. Actual commitments for life.
Oh god. Okay. I look at Matthew. Alright. I really just wanted to give life and attention to these reviews, which are either kids being genuinely mad or trying to be edgy or ironic shitposting. Is it funny? Kinda. It's most of their attempt at being provocative is just ending up being corny, and it's fucking killing me. Obviously, this isn't representative of the whole Project SEKAI fandom, and I can attest to that, because those who commented on my last video were so damn nice and helpful. So much so that I can look at these reviews and have a good laugh for a few minutes. But even with that, the game, despite having a wide demographic of people by just being a Vocaloid game, is definitely targeted to a younger teenage group that likely doesn't know what Vocaloid is. Actually, new topic. I'm stepping into dangerous territory with this one. I do not like talking about a large community because I don't feel like that's who I am. Everyone's different, and generalizing a community is a really bad idea. And I think there are entire videos out there able to explain this kind of thing much better than me. But I do want to explain something about this game. Project SEKAI is listed on the Project Diva Wikipedia page as a spin-off of the series, which is... like, seriously? But it's also kind of fascinating. Here's something that a lot of you older fans will roll your eyes at. This was a lingering question that no one liked talking about because it was exaggerating a lull in the community spotlight status. Like, it wasn't dead, it was just gone underground a little bit. Vocaloid used to be at the forefront of Eastern music and arguably internet culture. You couldn't go to any up-and-coming website without seeing a Miku fan art or two. But like in 2018, 2019 I'd say, we had like yearly concerts, the fan art was going as strong as ever, figure sales were a guaranteed hit, and the community was one of the most accessible and widespread across the internet. But by this point, it had been like this for years. We didn't have much in the way of upcoming games, and a lot of older producers had moved on to bigger things that isn't Vocaloid related. That last bit isn't bad. If anything, that's a testament to how huge the scene had become. But to a lot of people, this was enough for Vocaloid to feel like it was a party that had started to be over soon. But in reality, we were honestly being quite stubborn. Which is why SEKAI is so fascinating to me. Like, as a game, I don't really like it that much. But as a beacon of what Vocaloid has now become, this community is arguably better than it's ever been. As before, it's essentially spearheading the scene right now. There are tens of thousands of fans that have become invested in this culture that has existed for over a decade who were introduced via this game. Now, is this a good thing? Well, that would come from asking if SEKAI is a good representation of what Vocaloid is at its core, how it operates, how it presents it. And the answer to that is it's not a weird in-between of kinda, it's a definitive yes and no. I guess if we specifically look at story. On the one hand, the idea that these Vocaloids can vary in appearance, meaning, and personality according to the ideas and projections people have of them is pretty much Vocaloid 101, and the game presents that idea in the simplest and most efficient way possible. Arguably way too efficient, because the idea of what a Sekai is objectively is just kind of brushed under the rug, like no one cares. The song list, similarly, is varied and arguably the most important part of the game in the grander scheme of things. Due to this game's popularity, it's picking up producers to make songs for the game. Not old ones exclusively, mind you, it's kickstarting the careers of all new ones. And this process is a loop. The bigger it gets, the more they can do. Which is what I meant by saying that this is where you should be if you want to follow Vocaloid. It's a really nice hub, and as a publisher, that is a very, very strong position to be in. However, on the other hand, these characters. The one and only good thing is that the groups this game has covers a lot of thematic bases that Vocaloid touches on. It's a community-led effort, so there are many different types of people engaging in it, from the cool, confident, the trendy, the theatrical, and the psychological. Yet, one example I have is Singing Among the Cherry Blossoms. It's a Leonid event story which, while an intimate look at how Vocaloid has impacted people in a powerful way, something this entire community can understand, manages to not exactly get there. Like, it frames Miku as being responsible for where Ichika is in life and how perfect she is and how she's so good at what she does, but it's like, The story kind of pretends that producers don't exist at all. And like, I get it, you don't want to make it a documentary on like specific producers and stuff like that. And the Vocaloids exist in a more fictionalized setting. So that's kind of the point. But it just kind of feels weird to hear Ichika pour her heart out for something that, while exists in real life, is not reflected in the same way. It just feels kind of reductionist in that way. The game doesn't do a good job in explaining that these Vocaloids aren't as dynamic characters as the rest of the cast, as they're intentionally static. Like, you know, Vocaloid 101, like, it shows that, but it doesn't properly enforce that. All Vocaloid is a singing synthesizer program, like a virtual instrument that you can tweak and tune to make it sound like a singing human. In this day and age of AI-assisted voicing software, Vocaloid sounds is stilted and dated, yet the accessibility of it, and the potential of giving independent producers a very literal voice that they themselves could not have otherwise, has led to the barrier between indie and mainstream music become pretty blurred in Japan. Songs created in somebody's bedroom has just as much potential to be played and shared everywhere as ones made in a studio, and Vocaloid has played a part in this. I don't think Sekai reflects this history as much as it could. It's this close to getting it right, because like even taking out the story bit, like the rhythm game part of the game is there and it can prop up a lot of producers that way, but more so in its own fictionalized setting it feels quite absent. I would not be surprised if people introduced to Vocaloids through this game don't have a passing interest in them, because I sure didn't, and I like Vocaloids. They only exist to motivate the characters this game actually gives a shit about. Therefore, the amount of fans this game's cast sometimes feels like it majorly outnumbers the fans of Vocaloid. It ties into a greater discussion about franchise identity, and as I was finalizing the script, the perfect example came to me. Project SEKAI, in January, is getting a feature-length animated movie, domestically and overseas. For the first time, Vocaloid is at the front and center of audiences in cinemas, which to a lot of people is and should be kind of a huge deal. But I'm only mildly reserved. A movie where the most well-known Vocaloids are at the front and center is such a dangerously ambitious concept because of their rules. Intentionally no character personalities, traits, or pre-established canon or lore, so you'd really have an uphill battle to fight in order to make something like this work. Like, I was thinking like a sort of meta type of Lego movie kind of thing, but I'm gonna say like Project Diva X was onto something with making the characters act differently depending on their module. That you could work with that. The one problem is, this isn't a Vocaloid movie. This is a Sekai movie with screen time devoted to mostly Sekai characters, and we all know exactly how it's gonna play out. It's not canon to the game, which is a pretty good idea, but cramming 20 distinct characters into a story whilst also having a new Miku at the forefront, that's a lot. That is a lot. And we know which of the two will get the most screen time. This is for Sekai fans first and foremost, which is good? Like, you might have inferred that I probably hate this movie, but no, I think that this makes the concept of a Vocaloid movie a lot more accessible than it really could be. Like, I now have an idea of what's in store for me. Like, it's just, you know, it's just Miku movie for Sekai fans. It's just Sekai fans. They're loud. They post emo everywhere. They spread images of their favorite character and don't take kindly to anything that doesn't agree with the line of thinking. Even before I uploaded my first video, I was told, are you sure? You know this might not go down well, right? In other words, they're all nerdy teenagers. Often the brunt of being called tourists because of the explanations I gave above about Vocaloid identity and producers and stuff like that. And it's not an incorrect assessment by any means. But look, I want to say, I urge those who don't accept fans who entered this community through this game to think about it for a second. Imagine becoming really invested in a fandom and community through one game, a game which you spend a lot of time in and you like a lot. And imagine being told by someone that this game only scratches the surface of a community that has over a decade's worth of passionate activity of art, animation, music, merch, in-jokes, the works, and previous other video games. And the game you play wouldn't exist without it. Within the millions of Sekai players that the game has accumulated over the years, even having a fraction of those people becoming invested and knowledgeable in the community at launch, I don't think that can be a bad thing. And I get it. To me, this game doesn't reflect enough the thing I like the most, even though it has really good things in it. That in my opinion, maybe should not be stopped just because it's not Diva, even though I completely agree. And besides, all of you older Vocaloid fans, how old were you when you discovered Vocaloid. Yeah, exactly. You and Sekai fans are not that different. From the comments on my last video, all these stories, corrections, tips and hints, it showed me that this community is very passionate. This isn't just people hyping up a thing they like just because it's a temporary hyperfixation. It's passion. Anytime I play the multiplayer aspect of this game with randoms, it's just a positive, fun time. Even when I am losing, I'm having fun. Despite the disconnecting, that sucks. I believe everything I said before, and I even have a few unanswered questions because there is a lot. But if this community is the one that I'll be coming back to when I get that Vocaloid kick every few months, I'd say it's in mostly pretty good hands. Like, all in all, it's just a loud minority of people that you see that it's probably annoying. I'm so fucking glad I'm not on the TikTok side of this community. It's hard to say Sekai changed anything in regards to what Vocaloid is at the end of the day. Despite what I just said about how it presents Vocaloid to casual fans, it's not exactly reinvention, but the whole game is an example of very heavy community reinvigoration. All Sekai did was breathe new life into this franchise, which the people responsible for managing said franchise said had run out of steam. And when I say franchise, I mean Vocaloid in the video game sphere. Obviously, the brand is huge enough that it can survive through merchandise, memes, concerts, fan art, and the producers who still work on the program. But can you imagine Hatsune, Miku and co. only surviving in internet video game culture through gacha game collaborations, small references, cosmetic items and other games? Knowing we had it so good before, do you know how sad that'd be? If that was it? Like, we had Project Diva. Not anymore. Instead, we got a video game that leverages the IP and characters to not only give new experiences to already existing Vocaloid fans, but it is powerful enough to create new ones, welcoming those curious into an almost bottomless back catalogue of music that is as varied and unique as the human mind can be. The suspiciously robust and intuitive profile creator in game is proof of this, with people making really fancy and creative profile banners. Like, the game doesn't need this, but it spawned a creative corner within it that cannot and should not be overlooked. I almost did. I added this very late into the script, but I was really amazed with what the dedicated can do. Here's what I made earlier. The music portion of this community is just straight up more popular and active than ever, with the game continuously encouraging and rewarding new talent with some of the best exposure you could ask for, and so many would kill for that kind of power and exposure. Can Sekai represent its IP better? You could argue that it could. Does Sekai exist first and foremost to make money? Yes. Yes. Did Project Diva, a game that arguably did a better job of showcasing and utilizing the uniqueness of its IP, die for a gacha game? Absolutely. And it's never coming back, and Sekai killed it. But it's not soulless. Shoujoism, they left a strong comment that honestly summarized why I felt the way I did about this game. Way better than I could. This is not what I wanted from a Vocaloid rhythm game, and going into it with that expectation would leave me extremely disappointed. And I'm not the only one with this opinion. I don't think the existence of that reality invalidates some of my criticisms with it, but after playing again more than a year later with a bit of a clearer view, I appreciate it more. As a rhythm game, it's wonderfully accessible and offers up a massive song list that is bigger than almost all Project Diva games combined, don't quote me on that. As a community, if you've run into flaws and all, it's pretty exemplary of the kind of creative passion Vocaloid has always had for its entire lifetime. I don't feel the same passion for this game that others do. Maybe I'm not the target demographic. Maybe I don't engage with the game enough to see the light. Maybe it's because Vocaloid is something I return to invest my time in only once every few months, now that my phase of indulging in it is pretty much long gone. Or maybe it's just not for me. But I see the passion, I really do. An IP, a community that I've loved for pretty much a decade now, is in good hands, for the most part. It's a bit different, and I had so many reservations, but after all this playing, writing, recording, editing, discussing, tossing, it's still Vocaloid at the end of the day, through and through, and it's in good hands, which is a good thing. And for all that it is, Sekai isn't a bad thing. Wow, I think I really lost my voice at the end there. I got really sentimental probably because of it. But this is the end of the video. I have something to say. Please stay tuned. God, I can't speak. So, firstly, Thank you to DeidreDraws for the thumbnail. If there's anything to take away from this long yapping sesh of a video, is that she can draw damn well and you should give her a look-sees. Link trees in bio. She's getting this Emu plush, by the way. I have no use for it. I bought it for a bit. So, from me, personally, despite uploading a more critical and arguably less informed review about the game, I received a ton of positive feedback, informed discussion, and fair, constructive criticism in the first review I made from this community. The way this community was described to me, I had a feeling that I'd be tossed to the lions, but instead, an overwhelming amount of passion from this game's fanbase has shown me that it's not all black and white, and I'm all the more interested for the game for it. So, those of you who did comment, thanks for giving it a chance. Throughout the editing process for this video, I found a lot of points that made me say, oh my god, I actually said that? Points that may end up miscommunicating how I really feel about the game. Most prominently in the story and character department. I was clearly writing how I felt and thought about in the moment and took little consideration for how that would come across to anyone that isn't me. So if you made it to the end of this video and I said something you agreed with or want to elaborate on, if I misspoke, misstepped, shit-talked your favourite character, said something out of touch, something misinformed, I think I already said misinformed. No, I didn't. Or anything that's discussion worthy, please, I encourage talking about it in the comments. I find that I can say so much more when discussing this kind of stuff with people who kind of know what they're talking about more than me. And also, it was a lot of fun last time. Please, just do it. Now, what's for the future? No more Sekai, please God. If you're subscribing to this channel for more Sekai content, I am so sorry. As much as I would like to talk and discuss about this game's various aspects in isolation, making this video while working a full-time job was a new experience I don't think I want to repeat anytime soon. This video was being made for about, I think I started properly in about May, and now it's October. So yeah, long time. I might watch the movie though. By the time you watch this video, it's the night for Miku Expo London, which I am going to, and I either would be excited or disappointed due to the lack of or inclusion of a big ass screen. In order to represent my people, I took my Taco Luca, so if you saw someone with the Taco Luca on the side and the shirt, on whatever, however I go wearing, because I'm recording this in advance, then you just missed me. I don't want to be recognized in public. Why did I even say this? And for those of you who still want to be around despite moving away from the one video topic that got me a surprising amount of attention, I got some things lined up. Over the course of this year, my friend group has been hosting pretty consistent Lethal Company sessions on Saturdays, and we tend to clip a lot of our mishaps. So around the start of the year, when I wasn't really working on this Sekai video specifically, I was more so just editing our weekly mishaps into their own little videos and sending them into the Discord. I've sort of toyed around with the idea of making that its own long form video and consulting with friends who doesn't want to be in it, etc, etc. So that's going to be a one-off thing. I just thought it would be cool to do that. So yeah. Now the likelihood of that being the first thing I upload is uncertain because it's pretty easy, it's just compiling shit. I don't want to alienate my current rhythm game centric audience so suddenly. Listen, I intend to move out from rhythm games after this. I have no more I want to talk about at this point. You'd think Diva from how much I dick ride that game, but that's like a magnum opus project that I have a lot of ideas for that I do not have the money, time, or skill, or social communication efforts to execute. I want it to be way more than just me involved in it. It is a series that deserves a special kind of respect and retrospective that I myself cannot do justice. But there is one rhythm game that I think genuinely 100% deserves the attention of not just rhythm gamers, but to anyone who likes games in general. Something much more my speed, my type of thing, something I can gush about endlessly, and I've wanted to for ages. It'll be short, sweet, concise, and extremely concentrated, like the game itself. And this game is one I have mentioned already. Now that is a fucking video game. Expect that within the month of November, because it's not going to be very long. And yeah, thanks for watching, and see you soon.